Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of Ask Bác Mark. This is the second episode in our first season about knowing yourself. In the previous episode, we discussed and shared our experiences regarding Ikigai and how to find your sense of purpose. And we were absolutely buzzing to receive so much interaction and support from you in the first episode. And today we are back with another very interesting topic. To know more about yourself, you need to know your personality. And one key trait in your personality is whether you're primarily introvert or extroverted. And that is exactly what today's episode is about, introversion versus extroversion and why it matters. And of course, being here with us to share his knowledge and his experiences is Bác Mark. Please welcome back Bác Mark to the show. Please press like or drop some hearts for us for Bác Mark. Hi Bác Mark and welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yes, how are you, Bác?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Yes, thank you. What did you think of the previous episode? I thought it was pretty fun and it was interesting, wasn't it?
I agree. I really enjoyed it and I look forward to many more.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us here again today. And let's get into it. Let's get into the episode today. So let me start off with the most obvious question. So why do we need to know whether we're primarily introverts or extroverts?
The answer is simple. The answer to this important question has so many implications for our interactions, our comfort level, and ultimately our success in different settings, academic, professional, and social. So once you're aware of your temperament, whether you're primarily an introvert or primarily an extrovert, the rest is easy, and we'll talk about that a bit later.
Yes. So how do I know if I'm one or the other, or both, or neither? Because it seems to me most of us have traits that seem introverted, but we also have other traits that seem extroverted as well.
That's right. Nobody is 100% either or the other. The Swiss psychoanalyst and the man who invented these terms or introduced them to the world said that if we were 100% one or the other, we would be in a lunatic asylum, in a mental hospital. So we all have traits from both, but we're all primarily one or the other. And that's very easy to determine with various, not assessments, but questionnaires. In fact, there's one on a website called Quiet Revolution, quietrev.com. That was created by Susan Cain. She wrote a best-selling book about 10 years ago called Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. So originally she had a 10-question survey, a 20-question survey. Now it's 10 questions.
Yes.
That's something you might want to take, and I can assure you that the results are very accurate. I think we have a version in Vietnamese on the Capstone website as well.
Yes. So people can access this when you visit capstonevietnam.com, and it's called the Quiet Rev assessment, right, Bác?
That's right. You'll see it on the website. I don't have the exact link, but quietrev.com is the website.
Yes. So could you share with us a little bit about yourself? Which one are you, and how has that affected your life? I mean, are you introverted or are you extroverted?
I am primarily an introvert with two exceptions, also known as ambivert tendency. So this is an example of somebody who's primarily falls into one category, but not 100%.
Yes.
For example, I've taken many risks in my life, personal and professional, and I've taken those risks based on knowledge, experience, and intuition. We could devote another session to intuition. That's also a part of knowing oneself. Another point is that they say that introverts avoid conflict. Conflict is not something I avoid or fear, with this caveat. when there are important issues at stake. For example, fairness, justice, exploitation. So, yeah, when I took that quiz, that questionnaire, I check off most of the boxes. I'm primarily an introvert, and I've seen that in myself for many years. But there are exceptions.
Yes, and well, this question just pops up to my head, but because you mentioned there, you don't avoid conflict. However, most people would think that introverts might have a tendency to avoid conflict. So, are there any other kind of misconceptions that you have received as being an introvert?
I think if you go and look at some dictionary definitions, you'll see references to being shy, and introverts are not shy.
Yes.
So that's a misconception right off the bat.
Yes, I think a lot of people usually assume that introverts are more shy and reserved.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but
shyness is something very different. Shyness is fear of social judgment, how others are going to judge you.
Yes.
So it's quite different from being introverted.
Yes. So we can agree that that's a misconception, and from my interaction with you, I can guarantee that being an introvert has nothing to do with your confidence, or if you fear social interaction, social judgment or not. Yeah, I think that's a misconception that we can totally agree on. Yes. And bác ơi, what about the implications of being primarily an introvert or extrovert for your academic and professional life? Has it made any difference for you?
It makes all the difference, whether you're one or the other, and how you live your life. Let me just give you, since I mentioned those three areas, academic, or if you're a secondary high school student, going to school, professional,
yes,
and your social life. So for the academic setting, in general, I would say that introverts prefer a small group setting and independent study to large groups. And one of the key differences between introverts and extroverts is that, while introverts enjoy going out, we like being in groups of people, but it's taxing. It drains our energy. Whereas extroverts, it actually helps them. They enjoy it. For introverts, after a certain period of time, they need to go back and recharge their batteries, so to speak. For a professional setting, the work environment is important, as is professional autonomy. And if those are important prerequisites to productivity and job satisfaction, whether you're happy at your job or not. Finally, with your social life, introverts are more comfortable meeting with a small group of friends or a friend and acquaintances rather than large groups.
Yes, and I have not taken the assessment yet, but I do believe that I would be more towards an introvert rather than an extrovert, and I can tell you that yes, I do prefer small group setting to larger group settings, and yes, some of your examples right there just really apply to me. But
and as a child growing up, I mean, good parents recognize the temperament in their children, as do good teachers. So if you know your child's an introvert or an extrovert, you need to treat them differently. The main thing is and you want to do this yourself, you want to create situations or expose yourself to situations in which you'll be successful, in which you'll thrive and excel, and avoid the ones in which you will not.
Yes. Well, because you mentioned there, I also have a comment. I do think that, especially in Vietnam still, there are a lot of teachers and parents who might not have enough information about introversion and extroversion, and I still think that a lot of parents and teachers, they still usually try to put their kids and their students in a setting that might not be comfortable for them if they are introverts. And also a lot of the misconceptions I think that parents and teachers still make, like they still assume that some of the more reserved students are because of their introversion, even though that might be a totally different problem.
Let me share with you and our audience a great quote from Susan Cain.
Yes.
Now, with her best-selling book, before that, her TED Talk, which has been viewed many, many times. It's also Vietnamese. There's a Vietnamese transcript. She's the person who really brought this issue to the attention of a mass audience. And here's what she said. Everyone shines given the right lighting in reference to the right conditions. In other words, we're all different in terms of temperament and learning styles.
Yes.
And it's important to recognize that as parents, teachers, and to recognize that in ourselves as we get older, secondary and high school students, maybe younger in some cases.
That's a great quote. And members of the audience, please drop some hearts or drop some likes if you find this interesting, or if you agree with the quote. And yes, show us some support. Thank you. And those are great examples. And does being an introvert or extrovert have any impact on how easy it would be for a person to become successful back? I think a lot of people would like to ask this question as well.
Absolutely not. A lot of leaders and successful people now and throughout history are in fact introverts. Let me just mention a few famous introverts, and you can actually Google this, and you can come across other names. So these are some names that our audience may be familiar with. Warren Buffett, Albert Einstein, Lady Gaga.
Well, Lady Gaga is introvert. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. You could be an introvert and be a performer.
Yes.
Mahatma Gandhi, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Barack Obama, J.K. Rowling, Steve Spielberg, and Mark Zuckerberg. And this, I like this example, which is closer to home, Vietnamese example.
Yes.
Bác Hồ, Ho Chi Minh,
yes.
Another famous introvert.
Yes. So yes, I think just from the examples that you mentioned there, we can totally see that being introvert or being extrovert really doesn't have too much impact on whether you can become successful or not. And it's a big misconception that people think that since leaders are usually required to be in a large setting and required to have a lot of social interaction, then they must be an extrovert. But I think that that's not really true, and you can still handle social interactions. You can even master it. It's just that maybe you prefer to be with a small group better when you have free time.
Or if you're in a large group, maybe you don't spend as much time as an extrovert would because you find it to be draining.
Yes.
Or being in a large group, having that kind of contact, that interaction, that energizes extroverts. They like that. I mean, I'll use the pandemic as an example. Which group, it's a question for the audience as well, which group has done better during the pandemic, introverts or extroverts? And why?
Well, I think probably introverts, wouldn't it? Because, they would, I think that, if they cannot go out and to parties, I don't think they would mind that much, because they would tend to spend time in a more cozy setting anyway.
Exactly. So they're much more comfortable being alone, and they're much more able to live in their mind, so to speak, than extroverts.
Yes.
I want to mention, if I may, I want to mention a test. This is a longitudinal. Longitudinal means a long-term research study conducted on, I think it was 4-month-old babies. This is also on Susan Cain's website and elsewhere. And it's a very simple test. They put lemon juice on the baby's tongue, and then they checked to see how long it took for the baby to begin salivating. And then they followed those babies, when they're children and young adults. And the ones who salivated the fastest, you might want to summarize this in Vietnamese, maybe a bit difficult, but they tended to be the introverts. They were more sensitive to that kind of stimulation. In this case, putting lemon juice on their tongue. It's called the lemon test. That's fascinating.
That is really fascinating. So there must be, I'm not sure about this, but there might be some biological connection between, how sensitive you are physically and, your tendency to be an introvert or an extrovert.
There is. I mean, it's we're born this way. It's like our eye color or hair color or
Yes.
IQ or sexual orientation. This is something that we're born with.
Yes. Totally, Bala. So, yes, but, because we are born that way and because it's just like another trait for us, being introvert or extrovert is just another trait for us. So are there different jobs that are more suitable for introverts than extroverts, and vice versa?
Okay, here's an obvious job for an extrovert. Marketing and sales. Okay, getting on the phone, talking to lots of people, meeting with a lot of people.
Yes.
Maybe an extrovert would be better suited for that kind of a position.
Yes.
Other jobs, I've known IT specialists who were introverts, which is ideal, as they're working mainly with machines, right? Computers, coding, whatever, and less with people. But I've also known IT people who are extroverts. So it really depends.
Yes.
You can think of other jobs like being a teacher may be better suited for an extrovert because every day you're coming into contact with, all these students in your class and your colleagues, etc. Being an artist, introvert, computer programmer, writer. And there are actually websites that list these jobs by categories. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yes, but I think there's an important point to make as well, that these jobs might be more suitable for each group because the setting of the job might be more, preferable for one group or another. But that doesn't limit anybody from, maybe, how do I say it? So maybe like an introvert still can do a marketing and sales job. It's just a matter of, do you enjoy that setting, or would it drain and get more energy out of you, but it doesn't limit you.
Right. I mean, if I can go back to some of the key differences, and the people in the audience can listen and see, which point resonates with you, which is most like you, which you identify with. You like spending time alone. You like quality time with a few people over being in large groups. You need alone time. You need to spend time alone to rest after a busy workday or when you've been out and about. And you can get lost in your thoughts very easily. That's a description of an introvert. Extrovert would be the opposite. You like spending your time around other people. You dislike being alone. You like crowds, parties, etc. You need quality time with others. That gives you energy. Whereas for introverts, that drains your energy. So those are the key differences.
Yes. Thank you, Bak. That was very helpful. And so do you have any advice for students and of different personalities to better choose their career path? I think some of our students, member of audience here, would like to know more about that as well.
Well, one idea is to take a scientifically valid, so an accurate performance-based career assessment. For example, we offer one, and it includes introversion, extroversion. So this is helpful in giving you and giving your parents, for young people, more information. And it will help you, find what to study and find your career path in the future.
Yes. So speaking from my own experience, I think that international schools and schools overseas, colleges and high school as well, I think that they have a lot of career coaching programs for their students, especially high school students, so that they can know better about themselves and what jobs might fit their traits or their talents more. And I think that's still lacking in Vietnam quite a lot. And I think that students, Vietnamese students, we spend too much time studying all of the subjects, but we don't really have courses or classes that teach us about ourselves or how to learn to explore ourselves and to guide us better in making important decisions in our lives when we get to university and after graduation as well. And yes, at Capstone we do provide a career coaching service, and yes, I think that students should take that assessment, and that will be very helpful when you want to decide whether to take this major or not at university, and after that also whether to choose this field of area or to pursue another job, something like that.
That's right. I mean, there is one very popular assessment, but it's not scientifically valid. It's what's called pseudoscience or junk science, meaning the results are not true, but it's very popular. So this topic actually relates to what we discussed last week, finding your sense of purpose, your reason for being, your ikigai, that Japanese concept. So I think in order to be happy and fulfilled, there must be a fit between your abilities, your interests, your temperament, introvert, extrovert primarily, goals, and course of study, and eventually your career. So yeah, you're right. Too much time is spent on studying subjects and not enough on figuring all of this out.
Yes.
At a younger age.
Yes. Another question for maybe the younger members of audience here. So do you have any advice for introverts and extroverts to better equip themselves if they do decide to study abroad?
Well, I think they have to keep in mind that most societies, especially in the West, maybe worldwide, don't recognize these traits at home and school and in the world of work. And there's this bias in favor of extroverts to the exclusion of people who are introverts. The perception that we discussed that they're shy and passive and extroverts are proactive movers and shakers. This misconception is simply not true.
Yes. So do you have any kind of suggestion on, maybe how an introvert can fit better or can still enjoy themselves when they study abroad in a totally new environment with new people with completely different from different backgrounds?
I think you need to be true to yourself. What I mentioned earlier about those three areas, so academic, professional is a moot point, but also social. So academic and social, you have to create or find the situations in which you're comfortable and not stressed out, that are compatible with your temperament as someone who is primarily introvert or extrovert.
Yes,
that's part of knowing yourself, and that will make you happier.
Yes, totally. I totally agree. I studied abroad myself, and I do think that we really need to stay true to ourselves, because I do see a lot of fellows, friends who, just because they want to fit in, they want to have new friends in the new college, that they try to do things that obviously they would not enjoy, originally, and just so they can feel like they fit in. But if you do that long term, then it would drains you and it would sucks out the energy of you. And so from my own experience, I've been trying to stay true to myself even when I studied abroad, and still I made a lot of friends, and I made even closer friends because I stay true to myself. And if they are attracted to me, and if they can share what I have and what I share, then they would be, closer friends and better friends. Yes.
That's right. If not, if you're trying to meet other people's expectations, then it ends up being stressful and counterproductive.
Yes.
What you said reminds me of another difference between the two. Introverts generally don't like what's called small talk. They come alive when there's a topic that's of interest to them. And then they can become very talkative. But not so much with small talk. Another interesting point, and I found this to be the case, is that introverts are not so concerned about praise and awards, recognition, that sort of thing. That's a key difference.
Yes, that's very true, I think. And because I'm more toward an introvert, I think. Actually, when I first came to the US, I kind of struggled a little bit because, US people, they tend to have a lot of small talks, and I wasn't comfortable with that, and I didn't really know how to cope with that or how to kind of like hook on their conversation. So, yeah, but after that, I learned.
That's a cultural difference. So I was born and raised in the U.S., but as an introvert, I'm not fond of small talk. But yes, that's you can become an actor and play a role, and small talk can lead to something bigger and better in the relationship. It can be a starting point. That's simply part of the culture. So that's another point worth mentioning.
Yeah. Maybe we should have another episode of cultural differences as well. But
oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. At least one.
Yes. Well, great. I really hope that members of the audience enjoyed this podcast as much as I did, because this is a very important topic that I think is still very hard to talk about in just one episode. Yeah, but we tried to address some of the key important points today, and I really believe that that could help you to understand better and have a better direction to move forward with your academics and career path as well. And so for now, please raise your hand if you have any questions for me and Bagmak. Yes, members of the audience, if you have any comments, any questions, then please just raise your hands and I will invite you to the stage to ask questions. I see one hand. Yes.
Hello everyone.
Yes.
Bagmak. Yeah, very, very interesting topic. I wanted to ask, can an extrovert become an introvert?
That's a great question. Yes, and thank you for your participation and your interaction as well. And yes, Bagmak, do you want to take a shot with this?
Interesting question. Can an extrovert become an introvert? I don't think so. And I'm not a neurobiologist, so I'm not an expert on this subject. But based on what I know, this is an actual physical difference. So it's not based on your environment. It's not based on socialization. We're all born this way, primarily one or the other. And you can determine this when somebody's a baby. And and then track them based on the study I mentioned. So I don't think that's possible. Thank you for the question.
I agree. Yes, I agree. I don't think we can, become an introvert from being an extrovert. However, I do think that maybe we can maybe lean toward that direction a little bit more than we were, just by, you know, having more experiences and by learning to cope with different settings, then maybe we can enjoy different settings more, and we can lean toward one end more than we used to be.
Yeah.
Yes, but great question. Any other question from you or from other members of the audience? Please raise your hand. Yes, I see another hand. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I actually don't have a question. Just I think the questions previously was very interesting. So I just want to share my own experience. Basically, actually, I'm not really like in the case of the extrovert and think about becoming an introvert, but the other way around. So I think I'm more of an introverted person, and there was time I tried to, you know, like to speak up and like to like involved in more kind of like more extroverted activities, but then I think just like I tried to do it, but I cannot become an extroverted person because it really drained my energy. Like previously you mentioned that when like joining a crowded activities or like have a lot of people, then for extroverted people, then they will feel energized. I mean, like have more energy and more power. But then for myself, I will feel really tired actually at the end. Even though like during the party, I really enjoyed it. But then after that, I think I need more time for myself. So it's, yeah. So for your like the other person question, I think it's like we would try, but then we might not really change our inner self.
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. And you made me think of another point. I think that maybe we don't really change from one to the other, but it might be the case that we didn't know which one we really fell into, and so maybe we assumed that we were, you know, introverts or the other one, but then we never take assessments and we don't really know, and so when we realize it could be the other one that we didn't think we were.
Let me offer another personal example. So growing up, and probably without knowing the word, knowing the research, my mother knew that I was primarily an introvert. Therefore, she did not force me. And keep in mind that the world is designed for extroverted people. It said that 2/3 of all people are extroverts, and 1/3 are introverts. And so she never forced me into activities that were more for extroverts. So that was to her credit. I'm grateful for that.
Yes. Oh, and I see another hand. It's really great that we can share all of our experiences and just chit-chat a little bit with each other and share our own experiences.
Thank you so much. Hello back, Mark. Hi everybody. I just want to chime in because I think the question here is really interesting. We have whether like an introvert could be moved toward an extrovert, and I think I agree with back Mark regarding the fact that we don't really change. Like we change our surface, we change the way we interact with people, but we don't really change like inside. Does it? Do you think that is possible?
Well, going back to one of my previous points, sexual orientation. So, can somebody who's heterosexual can they become gay, or vice versa? And the answer to that is no. They may try, but they will no doubt experience stress, other negative feelings. So,
actually,
you want to add anything to that?
Actually, I have, because I have two stories, and I think it kind of fit with both way to explain how this thing works. Like is it change or is it not? So yes and no, I think. So the first one is actually my friend. She was an introvert. She really did the psychological test, introvert extrovert. Yeah, she did it a while ago, like I think like 10 years ago or something. I know her by then. And she was an introvert. But then later on, after graduation, she had a job. Things happened, and now she moved toward being an extrovert. Now she's like, I think she's still more introvert, but she start acting extrovert. The second story is actually myself, because in the past I was like, I think like 80% sure that I'm extrovert, but then now I'm like a 50-50. But I see the same pattern in both of us, that we could act like an extrovert or an introvert. We could like control the way we act, we interact with other people, but deep down inside we are not changed, because like when we are pushed into a circumstance where kind of like we force and we have no control toward the situation, we start acting like the way we originally are. I'm sorry. Like in a like an emergency case, I will act like an extrovert. I will be like jumping around, like fooling around. And my friend would be like, "Oh, just give me a corner. I will be there. You don't have to go find me anyway." But yeah, I mean, in the normal life, we act kind of like each other. We like a half. So I think it explains both. So do we change deep down inside? I don't think so. I agree with Mark about that. But on the surface, we do change because we grow up and we can control ourselves. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we adapt temporarily. Introverts can be in large group settings. They can be public speakers, but how they react, also physically how they react, is different from an extrovert. Yeah, your friend would make for an interesting case study. What kind of job does she have, if I may ask?
My friend was an extrovert. She was a market researcher. Now she does data science. Basically the same kind of machine things that you just mentioned in the beginning of the podcast. Right. Yeah. Also, I have a professor in my school back when I was in the US, and another professor when we have a class and we discuss about like different people, what is the way that people react. Then my professor say, "Oh, you know what? He's an introvert, but that is like the most joyful guy you have ever seen in life. Like he know everybody, he can talk to anybody. He do small talk like really great. Like he's like, I don't know. We call him like the most famous person in the department. And he's an extrovert. I'm sorry, he's an introvert. He's an introvert, but then he studied to become a preacher, and so I guess he picked up something from that course, and now he's really joyful. Everybody loved that guy.
So that's an interesting point. So a professor, you're talking about jobs. A professor can be, I've known many professors over the years who fall into both categories, primarily one or the other, because they spend a lot of time doing research.
Yeah.
A lot of their work is solitary. They're working alone in a library, at home, in a study, on a computer. They're having contact with students. They're teaching classes, seminars, and they're speaking to large groups occasionally. So they can be either and be successful and be happy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess this is, so if it is the question of nature or nurture, then I think we can say that it's both.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Great stories, by the way, and I really enjoyed your experiences and your sharing as well. I do think that I agree with you because we are born to a world that is made for more extroverts, as Mark said, 2/3.
Exactly. Yeah.
are extroverts. So I think that introverts, they don't really change internally, but they do learn how to live in a world where there are more extroverts. So they, as you said, we can learn and we can adapt, and we can change on the surface because we are required to. But usually that's why it kind of like takes away more energy from introverts. And also another point I want to make is that introverts, they can be introverts, but it doesn't mean that they completely hate being around people. Like they can still enjoy being around people. They can still talk a lot, like being joyful and stuff. But at the end of the day, maybe they would, really enjoy sitting at home and read a book.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Actually, I think a while ago I read something about that kind of phenomenon. Like we have introverted people, but they do so good around other people, and I think they made a term for that. They call it the sociable introvert or something like that. And I feel like we just come up with new terms every day. But it's funny, right? Like because it is both like the way we're born and the way we learn how to do, how to work, so how to interact with other people. So I agree. So like we learn a lot, we pick up a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Great sharing. Any other members of the audience have any experiences that they want to share, or any questions for us? All right. I think that's it for now. And I really enjoyed this episode. But Mark, what did you think about this episode?
I did too, as much as I enjoyed the one last week, and look forward to the next one after that in the new year.
Yes, and I think that people are getting more used to our stream of content, and people are getting more comfortable sharing with us as well. That's great news. And if you do feel like this type of content is suitable for you, then please follow our accounts as Bakmak, and you can follow Bakmak as well. We go live on mic every Friday at 3 p.m.